is the idea that if we keep getting transitory shock after transitory shock, I think you've used the word mini waves of inflationary bouts over and over and over again, expectations will be more vulnerable towards higher inflation levels. So people will be even more worried about inflation once we get like the third shock and the fourth shock.
That's right. And the size of the shock matters too. So inflation was 11% a couple years ago. That was on the front page of every newspaper. Households kind of knew about it. They saw it at the grocery store. So we've done a lot of research showing that households and businesses are possibly just more attentive to inflation. And particularly once inflation comes within a certain band. So there's a threshold. It used to be no one paid attention to inflation if it was below 4%. That band has actually shifted down. So in the UK, we think that if inflation is somewhere between 3.5%, that's the threshold at which people actually notice it a lot more. So if you then have another negative supply shock and inflation go up, people will be much more sensitive to that. We also have done research showing that people are more sensitive to upside surprises in inflation than downside surprises in inflation. And so that's a concern given we're now facing rising inflation. And then for firms, when they're looking at inflation, it used to be, before we had these supply shocks, that firms kind of set prices on a schedule. And since the pandemic, they've shifted much more to state-dependent pricing. So when inflation gets higher, they set prices more often and pass through their higher costs through to the end user in the form of higher prices. And that's remained. So if you have more state-dependent pricing from firms, then actually you can get a pass-through from inflation expectations from them much more quickly.